You're listening to the official Minnesota Wild podcast, presented by Acrisure.
It's Wild Weekly on the Fan.
Pass it from Kaprizov, shoots and scores.
Now here to talk about the Minnesota Wild and the NHL. From the Wild, Kevin Fallness. And from the Fan, Brandon Micheletti.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to a playoff edition of KFAN Wild Weekly. I'm Brandon Micheletti. He's Kevin Fallness. Kevin, last time I checked, talked with you, it was after the regular season was over. We've seen two Wild versus Stars games in Dallas, and obviously Game 1 went about as well as it possibly could, a 6-1 win down there in the Big D. And then last night, not surprised that the Dallas Stars pushed back and they win 4-2, but been a pretty good series so far for the Wild.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you want when you talk about going through the 82-game grind and finally getting to the Stanley Cup playoffs. You want that fun. You want that intensity. This is what we wait all season for, and it's lived up to the hype. Game 1, firmly in favor of the Wild as the Stars kind of sleptwalked their way into the series. But like you said, as expected, they had a response in Game 2. The Wild failed to meet the challenge, and here we are coming back to St. Paul, tied at a game apiece. The only disappointing thing here is that the Wild had an opportunity to sweep both games in Dallas, take their first ever 2-0 series lead in franchise history, and that unfortunately that opportunity went through their fingers. But still, wonderful hockey through the first two games.
Yeah, we talk about health all the time, right? Like they rested players going into the playoffs to make sure everyone was ready to go, fully healthy lineup. Game 1 fully healthy, and then kind of the gut punch before the game last night. It kind of came out of nowhere that Matt Zuccarello out of the game. Then Yakov Trenin takes that big hit in the game. He gets knocked out. And all of a sudden, two forwards you've been counting on. I know Dallas isn't going to feel any sadness for the Wild, given they're without one of their top 6 players at the forward position in Rupe Hintz. But still, significant losses there for the Wild last night.
Well, I mean, you look at what Matt Zuccarello means to this team, even what he meant in Game 1 with 3 assists, and then on the other end of that, Yakov Trenin, the NHL hits leader, one of the guys that supplies a lot of that physical aspect for Minnesota, and was credited with 13 hits in game number 1. I'm sure he had a little bit of a target on his back. They probably wanted to make him hurt after the hurting that he put on them in game 1. I don't think they necessarily drew that one up in the on the old chalkboard that we're going to blindside wrap him at center ice and leave him in a pool of blood. But that's what ended up happening. Upper body injury for both of them, of course. And, Zuccarello, of course, took that elbow to the ear in game 1 against Tyler Myers, ended up with that first goal to Jules Eriksson. But lingering effects for both of them. You can only hope and pray that you get them back out there soon, because both of them are very important to the fabric of this team.
Yeah, Zuccarello specifically, obviously he's a big help on the power play. But I think what also makes Zuccarello important on this team, Kevin, is their lines can play different ways, right? Like they have, like the two Folignos with McCarron, right? That's going to be a north-south line, right? So depending on what your matchup is, what type of team you're playing against, they can get in on the forecheck, bang some bodies around. And Zuccarello is the opposite, where you can play a little bit more east-west. And I felt like in Game 1, this team got some goals thanks to east-west passing. I mean, that Kaprizov goal, where it was a diagonal pass made from Ryan Hartman. They had another diagonal pass in that game that set up a goal. And I felt like that element of their game last night was missing, and Zuccarello's the best at it.
Well, and I mean, the way he's simpatico with Kirill Kaprizov, yes. I mean, they rely on each other because they've got that mental telepathy where they know where each other are without even looking half the time. And these blind passes that end up in a one-timer, whether it scores or not, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But there's just a comfort level for 97 when Zuccarello's on the other side, and that was missing last night. And again, the only part of the game that Zuccarello doesn't touch is the penalty kill, because he's usually the guy that serves the extra man, the bench penalty or whatever. He's not going to touch the penalty kill. But everything else, he plays such a huge role, and to not have him there, that was a chasm that was missing from that lineup.
I think there's a lot to like from a Wild standpoint here through the first two games. Goaltending from Wallstedt has been great. Your big stars scored, especially in Game 1, had some power play goals. If there's a concern for me, it would be, we always talk about Ryan Hartman, that he has to play on the edge, but he can't go over the edge. And I feel like we've now seen twice from Foligno. I always thought that Foligno wasn't the kind of guy that would go over the edge, but he did a couple years ago when they played a playoff game against a series against Dallas, and he got ejected, and he went over the edge a little bit again last night. It was a kind of unfortunate timing. I get you're frustrated that you're being interfered with, and those weren't being called last night, and it's by the stanchion. But, you can't just put a guy in a headlock, especially against the Dallas Stars team that is so good on the power play.
Yeah, they're all saying the right things, including Marcus Foligno. He's got to be better. He's got to play with more discipline. But now it's time to put your money where your mouth is because your playoff lives are on the line. I know the series is tied at a game apiece, but if you continue to play over the line like that, the result is going to be the Wild power play is very good as well. I think they're both like 2 and 3 in the National Hockey League, but as good as the Wild are with the man advantage, so too are the Dallas Stars. And if you continue to give them run with the man advantage, it's going to kill you in this series. It happened to them in 2023. It happened to them last year. Their penalty kill wasn't good enough. And their penalty kill can be as good as it wants to be, but their power play is so good that if you continue to give them chances, they're going to score goals, and it's going to cost you games, which ultimately will cost you the series. So continue to walk that line. Don't go over it, because if you do, it's gonna hurt this team in many different ways.
And you got to tip your cap to Stars goaltender Jake Ottinger, especially in that first period.
Was he good?
He locked it down in the first period. He had 3 just massive saves, the one on Urov. Matt Boldy had a couple chances. He had the breakaway.
Boldy could have had a hat trick in the first period alone.
Ottinger stood on his head. He didn't have to do as much in the second and third period, but that first period, the Wild were physically punishing the Dallas Stars there in that first period and had a chance to be up more than just 1-1 there.
I'd like to see the Jake Ottinger from Game 1 and less of the one that we saw in Game 2. We'll see what they bring to the table in Game 3.
All right, let's talk with the great one, Pat Micheletti. You'll chat with him on the Wild Extended pregame show tomorrow night. You also talk with him Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. to noon on Beyond the Pond. We talk with Pat Micheletti next, right here on KFAN Wild Weekly.
Trying to step around the pressure. Niels Lundqvist and buzzing on the forecheck. Bobby Brink came up with it, centered. Open! You're off a shot. Stopped by Ottinger. Big save there by Jake Ottinger. Great forecheck by Brink to dig it free. Johnston the other way offered one of the slot. That was blocked. Beck trims it around. Niels Lundqvist tipping off. Johnston a drive that went wide, and they score. It came off the end boards and deflected in. So a big save in one end, a tough break in the other, and Wyatt Johnston has his first of the Stanley Cup run.
Yeah, Joe Donnell on the call last night right here on the Fan. The Wild lose Game 2 in Dallas by a score of 4-2. I'm Brandon Mileski. Kevin Fallness with me as well. And we're pleased to be joined by Kevin's co-host on Beyond the Pond. You also heard him on the Wild pregame show last night before Game 2. He would be the great Pat Micheletti. Hello, Patrick.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Doing fantastic. I'm assuming you're not surprised by the resolve of the Dallas Stars after a poor Game 1 showing.
Well, they certainly came out with a little bit more jump. They were better, obviously, than they were in Game 1. But really, I mean, Minnesota could have been up 2-3-0 in that first period. Jake Ottinger came up with tremendous saves. One on Boldy. We just heard the one on Urov, and there were a couple others that Minnesota had an opportunity to score, and they didn't. So Ottinger, I think, was really the difference last night in the game.
It goes without saying what a massive loss it is when you lose one of your top 6 forwards, but Mats Zuccarello in particular, how his fingerprints are all over the Wild offensively, and to have him taken from the lineup, just moments before puck drop, and to lose Trenyon, who has a good, his fingerprints all over the game from a physical aspect. How big were those 2 losses in the 4-2 defeat?
Huge, Kevin, in my opinion anyway. I didn't like the Tarasenko, Kaprizov, Hartman back when they were together. I don't know, a month ago, was it? I can't recall when they played together. I just didn't like it. I didn't think the line had enough juice. And they just didn't seem to fit last night. I don't know what Zuccarello's status will be for tomorrow night. But I think there'll be some changes a little bit, even if Zuccarello's out, in how they line up Wednesday night.
Well, Pat, if Zuccarello is still out, what changes can they make with Kaprizov? Because I think, what we saw going into the trade deadline, right, is I think we all knew, hey, they need some help in their top six, specifically at center if they can. Obviously, they made the big move for Quinn Hughes. I don't think anyone regrets that, but it left a void where if you have any injuries in your top six, you're going to be hurting a little bit. So, what other moves can they make? Obviously, they tried, reuniting him with Boldy, but then you become more of a one-line team than a multiple-line team. So, who else could fill that spot if Zuccarello can't go?
Well, I think what you do, Brandon, at least I would do it, is I would move Hartman to the wing and I would put Urov at center. I think Urov and Kaprizov, that gives them a little bit more speed in the middle, and so I think that would open things up a little bit more for Kaprizov. But I would consider doing that. And because I would keep the Boldy, Eck, Johansson line together, and then you'll have to rework your third and fourth line if Trenyon's out again. So that's how I would do it. But we'll have to wait and see.
What did you think of Bobby Brink? He's the guy that came in and jumped on that third line. His postseason debut, again, a younger guy that has some jump in his skates. Did you get the impact from him that you wanted? And if Zuccarello can't go, what becomes of Bobby Brink and his role going forward?
Well, I think Brink needs to play with a fast player. Someone with some speed, someone that can get in on the forecheck and turn a puck over. Because Bobby Brink below the dots and behind the net is really, really good. And he's great around the net, as we saw in that pass that he made to Urov. And so, but if he's on a line that is not as quick, and meaning, a guy that can get in on the forecheck and beat the D and get the puck, then you're going to have problems. So, again, what that looks like, I don't know. But he can make plays down low. There's no question about it. The speed factor in a series that is fast affects him if he's not with the right player.
Pat, I know you know Brock Faber's game well. You saw him at the University of Minnesota, but even at Minnesota, Pat, he wasn't even on the top power play unit there.
Yeah,
I think we both knew he could be a pretty good defensive defenseman in the National Hockey League. I must say, this early in his career, 15 goals this season and then 2 massive goals last night, I never saw this offense coming from him.
Well, at Minnesota, when you have Lacombe, Johnson, they had guys that were offensive. And he thought, I'll sit back and play D. And we never really knew if he had it. I think obviously in college he could, but he didn't. And he just has opened up his game. And Brandon, you know how well he skates. And when he gets up jumps up in the play, he handles the puck well. He's strong. And in fact, there was a point in the game where I thought, he's got to be out on that number one power play, just because of the things that he can do. Him and Hughes, and they put Hartman out there.
I thought the same thing last night, Pat. Yeah, Pat, I thought the same thing last night when I saw Hartman out there. I initially thought Tarasenko would be in that spot for Zuccarello, but they opted to go with Hartman. And the power play just kind of struggled all night, and I'm thinking, I would consider going back to 2D here and having Faber out there.
Yeah, I agree, because in game one, their power play was fabulous. Last night, at least to me, it looked slow. It looked methodical. They weren't moving the puck quick, and they had a hard time even getting set up. And so, and that's where Faber can really, make something happen, because, Brandon, when you're on the power play, the goal is to make one of the guys get out of one of the defenders get out of position. You beat them, and then that opens everything up, because other guys have to move then. And that didn't happen last night. And so we'll see what type of change they make on the power play, because it's got to be better in Game 3.
0 for 4 on the man advantage last night. Meanwhile, the Stars scored twice, one of them into an empty net, but 2 for 5 with the man advantage. What'd you think of the perceived lack of discipline for the Wild? Marcus Foligno in particular, drawing fire for what Gulutzan called grabbing Harley in a headlock and throwing him into the turnbuckle, and ended up with a double minor at the end of the second period. Did you think there was a lack of discipline on the Wild's end last night?
Well, I'll defend Marcus Foligno to a certain degree. I thought he got interfered twice on the play. Once from behind, and I don't know who the forward was, but then Harley into the turnbuckle. That was the initial call. But then Foligno lost his mind a little bit, slammed his head in the glass, and pulled him down with a headlock. Not good, not smart, and so that's how that one played out. But you know what? This is a physical series. Everyone, is hitting everybody in sight. There's not a lot of room out there, but you've got to stay in control, and Marcus didn't on that play, and we saw the result.
Yeah, Dallas has been interfering on those dump-ins all series long, and nothing has been getting called so far.
Look at Kaprizov trying to get in the zone. It's impossible, but that's not being called. I didn't think the officiating. I thought the officials got too involved in the game last night, and it just, to me, guys, the flow of the game was different, and there are a lot of stoppages and a lot penalties on both sides, and it just didn't. It was a hard game to watch at times for me anyway. I thought the third period was a little bit better, a little bit more free flowing, and a little bit more rhythm in the game, and maybe that's the game that Dallas wants to play. I don't know.
What are your thoughts on Jesper Wallstedt through 2 games?
I think he's been great. I really do. Now, Lively Boards got him on that goal, and should he have been quicker to get there? It appeared to me it went off his glove, right? And
yes.
Then into the net. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I would say, I think his legs was in the right spot, and when it came out, I think he just tried to catch it,
Yeah, right.
Instead of maybe just kind of letting it go by, that thing wasn't going to hit him, and he stuck his arm out to try to stop it. Yeah,
a really unfortunate goal, but I think he's been. I think he's been great. I think he's been. He looks positive in the net, and and so I think he's been really good. Nothing he could have done on the Robertson goal.
No.
And then the power play goal. I don't know what defenseman got beat. I think it was Faber, actually, who didn't catch up to Duchesne, and Duchesne gets in that area. He's pretty good. So I think he's been just fine.
That was the big question mark coming into the series, the Wild goaltending situation. They end up going with the rookie Jesper Wallstedt. To me, through 2 games, goaltending's been the least of their worries. You wouldn't contemplate bringing in Gustafsson at this point, would you?
No, I wouldn't. And actually, I'll go back to Game 1. I thought there were more grade A chances in Game 1 that Dallas had, and Wallstedt was there to make the saves. And I don't think Dallas had as many grade A chances in Game 2. They just got opportunistic on the chances that they got, and they scored. So, no, if I'm John Hines, I'm sticking with Wallstedt.
All right, 2 more questions for the great Pat Micheletti. This is Brandon Molesky, Kevin Fallon, KFAN Wild Weekly. Pat, everyone overreacts to one singular game, and last night the target is whenever you lose, it's the star players, right? So people are concerned about Kirill Kaprizov. I will say, his line mates weren't exactly first line mates he was playing with last night without Matt Zuccarello, and he played great in Game 1. I'm not concerned with Kirill. I don't know about you.
No, I'm not either. I mean, he's no, I'm not, and I agree with you. It was, he played with. It was he misses Zuccarello, and I'm curious to see if there'll be any movement in what John Hines does if Zuccarello can't play. But no, to answer your question, no, I'm not worried about him.
So the series shifts to St. Paul. Game 3 tomorrow night. Extended pregame starts at 7 o'clock, featuring the great Pat Micheletti. The key to victory in Game 3 to jump back in front of the series.
Well, establish yourself on home ice and dictate the game from the get-go, and get your power play going, and I think that's really about it. These are two evenly matched teams, and which one is gonna dictate how the game is going to be played. And if Minnesota does that tomorrow night, and the crowd will be raucous, and it's going to be a great atmosphere.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate your time.
All right, take care, guys.
Talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon, Pat.
Hey, Patrick, I got good news, too. Confirmation. Tomorrow night, the puck drop officially 8:50 once again. So,
oh, gosh.
Drink your coffee, big boy.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.
He's Pat Micheletti, Kevin Fallness. You can hear them on the extended Wild pregame show. What time does that start tomorrow night there, Kevin?
7 o'clock. So basically
Oh,
a 2-hour pregame into that 8:50 pregame puck drop.
More Kevin Fallness.
Hashtag more me, hashtag mute TV.
All right, you can listen to Game 3 and that pregame tomorrow night right here on The Fan. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, you bet.
He's Kevin Fallness. I'm Brandon Molesky. Thank you for listening to KFAN Wild Weekly. Good luck to the Wild tomorrow night. Go Wild.
The best place to go for all your Minnesota Wild audio needs is the official Minnesota Wild podcast presented by Acrisure. Everything Minnesota Wild related, including highlights, press conferences, players, coaches, general managers, and more. It's available on the official Minnesota Wild podcast presented by Acrisure. It's all just a click away at wild.com/podcast.